on this episode of the Sorority Chat podcast.
And I always tell couples too, wedding planning is a lot. And sometimes you just need to take a break. You can have the rule that you can't talk about the wedding for a week. Or if you need to take a month off and not plan anything on the wedding and not respond to an email that month, it's okay. It's okay to take a break because it is a lot.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Sorority Chat. I'm Liz Toombs, a designer and sorority alum who's obsessed with all things Greek life. My mission? To bring you real conversations, smart insights, and fun stories that help make sorority living even better. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's chat. Hey sorority chatters, welcome back for another episode. I am thrilled to bring you Sarah Burton, who is the creative force behind Simply Love Studio and the host of the Wedding Whisperer podcast. Over the years, she has carved out a space in the wedding world, creating a wedding resource studio that helps couples and those supporting them to navigate planning their wedding with ease and joy. Her podcast, The Wedding Whisperer, is a go-to source for real talk about weddings, everything from vendor strategy and timelines to handling family dynamics and embracing the perfect parts of your big day. With engagement season upon us and the holidays around the corner, Sarah and I are going to dig into her tips for brides-to-be, their mamas, or their support teams, her journey shifting careers and building her brand, and what she wishes people knew about weddings beyond the spotlight. Hey, Sarah, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to talk with you. I've known you for a long time through many iterations of our professions, and so it's nice to reconnect.
I was thinking earlier today about, I think the first time I met you, I remember the most random things. Was at the Campbell House, and it was probably 2007, 2008, 2009, something like that. And it was a LIPA meeting, which is the Lexington Young Professionals meeting. And I remember you telling me what you did, and I was like, oh, that sounds like so much fun. And that is the response that everyone has to me now when I tell them what I do. And it's funny, it's like, that's the first thing that comes to mind is it's so much fun, but people don't realize exactly how much work goes in behind it to make it look fun.
You are right. I get that a lot too still. And I will say yes and, right? Yes, it's fun. And there's very interesting challenges or things that come along with it. You have a good memory for knowing I would not have been able to place the year, but I remembered meeting and I thought it was at Professional Women's Forum because we were involved in that organization together for so many years too.
I'm sure we saw each other there too. Like, I feel like it's such a small town here that once you meet someone that's around your same age range, you see them at all of the networking events and you just kind of continue that relationship.
Yeah, that's very true. Lexington is a giant small town, really.
Yes. Yes.
And speaking of small towns, you were born and raised in a small town in Kentucky. And so talk with people a little bit about your upbringing and your career, kind of get us up to where we are now, because I think your background and sort of your transformation has been really inspiring and interesting to watch.
Growing up in a small town in Monticello, which is on Lake Cumberland, is an amazing place to grow up. But I grew up only knowing that I could work in healthcare, education, or banking. Creative jobs did not exist. They really still don't exist there. And it was you grow up, you go to college, and you work that same career until you retire. Both of my parents worked the same career their entire life, and that's what I thought you did. And I went to Eastern, and I have a degree in human resources. I thought I wanted that corner office. I thought I wanted to be the boss and manage people. And I got an amazing job right out of college, working for a human resources company. And I was maybe 4 or 5 weeks in, and I was like, this isn't really what I thought it was going to be. And I had signed a 6-month lease on an apartment in Lexington. And when that 6 months was up, I was like, I'm good. I came, I saw, I interviewed people. I moved people from all across the U.S. to Lexington for jobs. And I learned a lot about engineering fields and communication industry. And it wasn't for me. It was also, I think I was so young at that point that it was so scary because I was moving, people with very large incomes and their families all over the US. And I'm like, what if I mess up? Like, what if something goes wrong? Like, this is people's livelihood. Here I am just right out of school pretending like I know what I'm doing. And at that point, I was like, this isn't for me. Being at a desk every morning at 8 o'clock, 8:30, and being in dress clothes every single day, it's not for me. I had to answer the phone and talk to people. And I was like, I think there's something else out there for me. And I would say my parents were disappointed that I left the company. They wanted me to stay because they did not think I had given it long enough to really know. I will say I made phenomenal money at 22 right out of college. Those bonuses were great, but I spent it all shopping because I was just kind of sad. Like, it wasn't worth it. And at that point, I was like, well, I'm going to move back to Monticello with my parents. I'm still 22 at this point, and I was like, I'll figure out what I'm going to do when I get there.
I think it's very fortuitous that you only signed a 6-month lease because you could have been committed to a lot more. And so that gave you kind of an opportunity to have an out and to make this switch and pivot to go back home, right?
And I wonder, thinking back or looking back, like if I knew maybe it wasn't going to be for me, I don't know. But yeah, I would have stayed there as long as I had a lease. I wouldn't have looked for another job here at that point because, the company was great. The boss was great. It was just the work. So, but yeah, I think anytime you move to a new city for a job, even though it's, a lot cheaper to get a long-term lease, it's also a lot more expensive to get out of that lease.
Yeah, that is good advice. I'm curious because you said like your parents weren't really upset with you. And I think that's so great to have had that support system and to have them backing you. Did you know like, okay, I'm going to leave this job in HR and I'm going to go into this industry? Or was it just like, I need to get out of this so that I can find what's next?
It was, I need to get out of this and find what's next.
Okay.
And looking back, I don't know exactly how wedding planning came about. I remember having a friend getting married, and I don't know if at some point we had that conversation. I don't know, but it was one day, I'm going to be a wedding planner. I want to plan corporate events because I did do, a lot of corporate stuff with the HR company. And so I was like, I'll plan corporate events and then we'll do some weddings too. And I just started doing it. And that was in a world where it was pre-social media. Well, we had social media if you were in like college, but we didn't have like business pages and stuff. And you had to go to all of the in-person networking events. And I walked in there like I knew everybody and I knew what I was doing and I pretended like I knew what I was doing. And I found a mentor at the time that was in the wedding industry and really got to work with them and work wedding days to see what it was like and just to kind of see the behind the scenes so that I could learn more. And saying that I wanted to start doing corporate events, that was kind of my primary goal when I first started. I didn't do my first corporate event until year 3 because it is such a smaller area. And because it was Monticello, I probably covered 6 or 8 cities. Like I would drive an hour to an hour and a half to cover, events in all of the cities just because it was such a smaller area and you had to do that.
Right. Yeah. It's part of rural America. It takes a little bit longer to get to some of the places you need to be. So you were doing wedding planning and corporate events, but then now you have this studio that is a wedding planning resource. So where did that start to come into play?
I feel like if I could rewrite all of this, I would have made it a whole lot simpler. As a wedding planner, you get a lot of moms especially, but also the couple. They go to Google. They have a lot of questions, as one does when they have not been married before or they haven't planned a wedding in a long time. And they Google whatever the question is, and a wedding planner is most likely going to pop up for that. From SEO, that type of thing, or blogs. And so I would get the phone calls of, hey, can you help me with this? And then you would spend 30 to 40 minutes on the phone with a mom or the bride answering all of these questions or helping them with their timeline or helping them find vendors, all of those things. And then they were like, you have been so helpful. Thank you so much for all of your help today. I really appreciate it. And you're like, I just spent all this time and gave you all this information, but you really don't necessarily need a planner. You just needed someone to answer your questions. So that was really kind of how this whole job came about. And in the beginning, Simply Love had a storefront because so many wedding vendors work from home that we use like Starbucks and Panera coffee shops as meeting spaces. The storefront gave vendors an amazing space to meet vendors. And it was always decorated in weddings. It was fun. And then, of course, with the pandemic, that changed. But Simply Love had a storefront for 13 years, sorry. And in the beginning of Simply Love, I did move to Lexington, which is 2 hours from Monticello, where I grew up. And I tell people it was really about I had to pick what I love to do versus where I love to live. Lexington is an amazing town, but it's never honestly felt like home to me. I don't know why. It is a great place. Like, I love all of the vendors that I work with. I love my couples, but it's just for whatever reason, it's not home, even after I've been here for so long. And I think it's just kind of the small town. I miss that small town vibe, but I know that I can't plan weddings and make a living in a small town. So for now, I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And with being a 2-hour drive, I'm assuming you can get home as often as you like or bounce between the two places depending on your schedule.
For sure.
So you talked about Simply Love having a storefront. Let's back up a step and explain to people exactly how this resource center works, because I'm sure people are trying to figure out how you earn money, how it sustains itself.
Yes. Simply Love, because I talked about people just needed a resource. They just needed somebody to answer their questions. And so it was, how can a wedding planner make money on that and still, and just continue to do that? So Simply Love Studio is funded by wedding vendors. Wedding vendors pay a flat yearly membership fee, and that allows me to do my job, essentially. And I meet with couples, and ideally we meet in the beginning stages of the planning process, but I will work with them no matter where they're at. And we will talk about their budget. We'll talk about their guest count. We'll talk about what they've done so far. We'll talk about what they need to do next. And there are some couples that if they're toward the, end of the planning process, we'll just meet once. If they are in the beginning stages, we may meet 6, 8, 10 times during the planning process.
Wow.
And the only difference really between me and an actual month of coordinator, a date, or a full service planner is I'm not actually there at the wedding. I do it all leading up to the wedding and to the rehearsal. And then I if they have a friend running things, I will give them a timeline and work with their vendors to make that timeline good for everybody, essentially. But I also, of course, will refer them to a professional if they have that in their budget. That's going to be the ideal scenario, but not everybody has that in their budget, or they don't know who to go to for that. And I really get to know the vendors that I work with, and I know who is a good fit for who. That was one thing I learned early on. I had a wedding that I should not have booked, and I learned a lot from that wedding. And I know now how important it is to be a good fit for any wedding vendor and the couple. And so that's what I really try to do, is to keep, unnecessary situations from happening and to make everyone happy on the wedding day. And I know the couple's budget. I know what the vendors charge for things. I have vendors' availability at my fingertips. I just try to make it easier for the couple. The biggest question I always get is like, what's the catch? There has to be a catch. And I'm like, there's no catch. My goal is just to help you and to answer those questions, because no matter what city you live in, you're always going to see stuff online that is California, New York, Florida, the bigger cities. I have no idea what is accurate there and what is not, but I can tell you the things that we see online for Kentucky weddings is not accurate. Even what you find on Google a lot of time, the Not Wedding Wire, Google, whatever, most of it's not accurate. And so I want to be here and give couples an accurate representation of what they're going to spend money-wise and how quickly they can do things, and just kind of be a cheerleader in their corner and answer those questions that are keeping them up at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah. Do you find that Google is underselling or overselling what they're going to be paying as far as the budgets?
A lot of times the total number is fairly close, but they will have a DJ as being like $1,000, whereas realistically it's going to be like $2,500. They just have a lot of the numbers and the categories off. And I've learned in the last, year, apparently DJs are not popular in Cincinnati. They have more live bands there. And so everything is going to vary by city. And those are going to be the things that someone local knows that the internet's not going to know.
Yeah, that's very true. So it's fascinating to me because you're saying that you have parlayed that pick your brain phone call that you talked about at the beginning of the conversation into a profitable business model that is now connecting couples with vendors and using you as sort of that connecting piece.
Yes. And there have been other companies throughout the U.S. that have tried a similar business model. It's one of those, and you have probably learned this as a small business, that in the beginning, when wedding planners are sending other vendors business, they're all about the idea. They'll be like, yeah, we're there to support you. But when it comes time to actually pay that membership fee, a lot of times vendors aren't going to be there to do that. And I think that that's what has happened to other business models across the country, is where a lot of people have said that they would be there to support planners. They weren't. And again, it's one of those that looks like it's easy from the outside. And when you get on the inside of it, it's not as easy as it looks like it's going to be. So I would say when Simply Love started, there were probably 4 or 5 other studios, and there have been that many come or go since then as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think the secret sauce is about Lexington or about your formula and how you're working it?
I think 50% of what I do is I'm there to benefit the couple, but I also work with the vendors a lot. On the vendor side of things, we do monthly networking events where so many networking events have gone away. We're still there. We're still meeting. And then those vendors, when they show up on wedding days on Saturday, they know each other. They have those personal relationships. They can text each other and they just have a good working relationship. And the vendors want to come to networking. They want to see each other. They want to support each other. And the majority of the Simply Love vendors are all full-time wedding vendors. They truly care and they see the importance of in-person networking and how that can really honestly make or break a business. And then we do a lot of other things, like as far as like headshots and content day. There's a lot of things on the vendor side as well that doesn't necessarily get posted online. It just kind of happens. But I think I would say 50% of that is just the success of the vendors and the relationships that they have created. And I try to keep my spots exclusive. Whereas like a bridal show, you may have 10 photographers in the bridal show. You may have 20 venues in a bridal show. All of my categories are very limited. And I have one vendor now that's a photographer that doesn't shoot that many weddings anymore, but he doesn't want to give up his spot because he's like, if I give up my spot, I'll never get it back. And so he's like, I can't book these dates right now, but don't give up my spot. So it's and it's more exclusive and it's harder to get into. And, you have to be good to be a part of the network.
Yeah, totally. Well, and then now you've taken that community that you've built and you're pulling it over into your podcast and you're showcasing those vendors through the show, right?
Yes. And the podcast really came about, I can hit a different demographic of couples on the podcast because I wouldn't say a lot of the couples that I meet with will be in the $20,000 to $30,000 range, whereas a lot of the couples that are listening to the podcast may have up to the $100,000 range. They already have a full service planner, but they still want to hear the information about the videographers and the DJs and the other vendors. So I get to share all of the vendors regardless of pricing and budget and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I don't know if you feel this way. I know about my podcast. I love getting to have guests on and talk to them because it's just increasing the connection and sort of a deposit in the relationship by like promoting them and what they do. And so I imagine that you could probably feel similarly about your podcast and staying in contact with your folks.
Absolutely. And I'm one of those, I don't just take everybody's money that comes along, any vendor that wants to be a part of it. I talk about how every vendor is a vendor that I would use personally. Like I have a realtor that's a part of the studio and I used him whenever I bought and sold a house. Like I try to be very intentional about everything I do. And every way I spend my money as well. And that, goes for the podcast too. And I've had several people reach out and be like, hey, we'd love to be guests. And I'm like, thank you for reaching out. But yeah, I try, I want to make sure that I'm putting the really good people out there and the people that mean well and want to take care of their couples.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's fair, right? Not everyone is a fit. You talked about that a minute ago when it came to booking weddings and different events. And so it's the same thing with the podcast. It has to all jive and really fit together well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Are there any like hot topics or recurring themes that tend to come up in the podcast?
Budget. We see most couples probably spend about 25% more on the wedding than they initially thought they were going to, just because things are just more expensive and you don't realize in the beginning. Being realistic on the wedding day, no matter how hard you plan it, how detailed everything is, something's still going to go slightly wrong.
Yeah.
And you just have to roll with it. And no matter, there are times, you just can't control things. It could be the weather. But there are things on wedding days that are just out of everyone's hands and you just have to roll with it.
Yep, absolutely. There is so much you have said in today's conversation that you could just pick it up and just put it over in my industry and in my business. People tend to spend more than what they anticipate they will spend because things are more expensive when you're renovating or updating your house. Things are out of your control with timelines and production and all of those things. And so you really do have to learn to roll with it. And I know that I, in a lot of capacities, feel like I'm kind of being a mediator or a little bit of a psychologist and helping coach people through it. Do you see the same?
100%. Yes. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to wing it and hope for the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. You do the best you can and everybody's human and you're just working together. But it is so interesting, the parallels between the two industries here.
And too, it's talking about yours and the spending more. It's kind of you have in your mind what you really want. And you see those images on Pinterest, but you don't really know what they cost. You think you do. And then when you get those dollar figures in front of you and those estimates, like, how bad do I want it? And then it's like, do I make this, long-term decision or do I do a short-term? So yeah, I hadn't even thought about the parallels, but I can absolutely see that.
So to your point about the long-term versus short-term decision, I kind of think of it in furniture terms, like good, better, best, as far as quality levels. And so you can take that picture you saw on Pinterest, and if you want to invest the money and have it longer term, you can go, better or best level. Or if you're thinking, okay, I'm okay with spending less to know that it's going to only last me a shorter length of time, then you can go, kind of that lower level tier. Is that the same, though, for your industry as far as quality levels, or is it just the service is what it is?
50-50.
Okay.
On that. It really is the good, better, best, I think. And it's figuring out what your budget can allow and what is most important to you. I always tell couples to pick your 3 things that are going to be most important to you, that we are going to get those 3 things, whether it's your photography, your catering, your tent, whatever it may be. Whatever is most important to you, we're going to get those regardless of what it costs. Everything else, we're going to be a little bit more flexible. So we may get the better in one, the best in one, and the good in the other.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's good advice. And you're kind of leading me to my next line of thinking, which is we're coming into the holiday season, which is a pretty popular engagement and even wedding season. And so there's a lot of proposals that are probably going to happen. So what should brides-to-be and the people supporting them prioritize first? Like, okay, you're engaged. What now?
I think December 21st is National Proposal Day. So yes,
really?
We are coming up on that. I just saw that yesterday. You can't do anything until you have a budget, regardless of what that budget is, whether that's $20,000 or $200,000, whatever your budget is, we have to have a number to work with. And a lot of times it may be the parents that are contributing. We may have 2 sets of parents that are contributing. We may have the couple that is contributing. We may have grandma that wants to pay for something. So we've got to figure out how much money we have, where it is all coming from. And most wedding vendors are small businesses and they have to charge a credit card processing fee. And so if you have an expensive vendor and you have a 3 to 4% fee on top of that, it starts to add up. So I tell everybody to have that money in a separate account or start putting it in a separate account. And that way you can pay those deposits with a check or ACH whenever it is time to pay those. You don't have the additional fees. But whenever you sign that first contract, which is typically going to be your venue, is when that money starts coming out, and it's just go, go, go after that. So really, you can't plan a wedding until you know what your budget is. And a lot of times people will be like, well, we just want to take it, vendor by vendor. You can do that if there's endless amounts of money. But anytime I see couples wanting to do that or parents that think that's a good idea, we get about halfway through and then they realize, we're spending a lot. And then everything else starts to get a little tighter. So regardless of what that final dollar figure is, let's have a dollar figure before you start making that invite list or anything.
Do you get pushback when you say, okay, what's the budget? Maybe not pushback, but do they just say, I don't know, like we'll spend what it takes, or we don't even know what it costs? And do you have to provide some guidance on your end to kind of get them to finalize that budget?
I do have a guide on my website that is specific for the Lexington area. And it breaks down all of the vendors that you may book for your wedding and what an average amount is going to be, and then what a low end and what a high end is going to be. And it'll talk about catering, like how it's priced, how alcohol is priced, service fees that are going to be on top of that, how wedding cake is priced. So even if you're not getting married in the Lexington area, you can still use this to see all the different types of vendors, all the way down through like your first dance lessons, your wedding insurance, rings, just all the things that all the areas you might spend money on. And it definitely adds up quick.
Yeah. Again, the parallels are wild, right? It's harder to help people finalize the budget for homes, whether it's a sorority house that I'm working on or it's a private residence, because there's a whole myriad of variables that go into it. But I mean, it's the same thing. You have to know what numbers you're going to work within. Otherwise, there's a lot of work that could be done for naught, or they're just kind of chasing their tail, or they run out of money at the end.
Exactly.
Which is the worst thing ever, right? You have this, in your world, you have this great venue and maybe a beautiful dress. Then if everything starts to fall off after that, it's not going to feel right.
My next podcast, I literally recorded it right before we did ours. And I wanted to share realistic expectations of your vendors. And before I dove into that, I wanted to share when I did full service planning, the two couples that were not happy with me. And I talked about, for me, it's either a 5-star review or it's a 0. If you give me a 4-star, it's still a 0 for me. And I talked about one of the couples, and why I think that they were not happy is because they spent half of their budget on the venue. And then we didn't have enough money to plan the wedding. And no matter what I was going to do at that point, nothing was going to make them happy. And so making that big mistake in the beginning just led to a multitude of mistakes.
Yeah, it becomes a domino effect at that point, I think.
Yeah.
You talked about couples getting support from family, whether it's monetary or other. Do you have advice for the family members and the people supporting them on how to kind of gracefully support but not overstep?
I see a lot of mothers that maybe did not get to have the grand wedding that they wanted 20 or 30 years ago, and they want to relive that wedding now through their child. Sometimes the couple does not even get to make their own decisions, and because mom wants something, and the bride just is to the point where whatever she wants, she's paying for it, so whatever she wants. So I would, be very careful. And there are some brides that don't want to plan their weddings, or they don't want to be very hands-on, or some things aren't important to them. But if it is, something that's important to them, to not overstep. And if you're giving them X amount of money, don't hold that over them. Like here's your money. Well, I want you to have a cake. If you're not having a traditional cake, then I'm not going to give you the money. If they want to have desserts or they want to have donuts or whatever, let them have whatever they want. You can have an anniversary party one day and have all the things you want. And it's going to get tough, and there are going to be a lot of moments. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. there are going to be some moments where there are tears involved, and couples are going to be disappointed in family members that maybe don't show up on the wedding day, or RSVP and don't show up, or don't send them text messages or even gifts, congratulations, cards, whatever, and to be there and support them. And I guess just to support them in what they need, because every day it's going to be different. Some days it's kind of a lot like owning your own business. You have the highs of highs and the lows of lows, and it's a whole lot like that. Every day is different. And the less amount of opinions, the better. Kind of like when you go dress shopping. Let's only take a couple people. We don't need to take 10 people and have everyone's opinions. And just kind of, think through things before you say it, and just be there to support them in whatever they want and whatever they need.
I think that's good advice. And I hear you on the don't include too many people, because that's just death by committee. And I think you're going to end up just swirling around in your own head trying to make a decision. What about as things get closer, time, I should say, gets closer to the big day? What advice do you have about managing stress as things are coming down to the wire?
Self-care is a big thing for brides, and it's prepping you for the wedding day, but also taking care of you at that time. I think that brides and grooms are in the best shape of their life on their wedding day. They typically work out a lot more leading up to the wedding. They are watching their diet a lot more. They are getting regular facials and care from their esthetician. They're going to the dentist and getting their teeth whitened, or they've gotten Invisalign for their smile. Like, they are working hard to look great on their wedding day, getting massage, the week of, and getting even some like the hydration IVs the week of, because that weekend is crazy and it's nonstop. So there's a lot that you can really do self-care wise, just to kind of make things easier and make sure you are there and alert and to be part of it all. And I always tell couples too, wedding planning is a lot. And sometimes you just need to take a break. You can have the rule that you can't talk about the wedding for a week. Or if you need to take a month off and not plan anything on the wedding and not respond to an email that month, it's okay. It's okay to take a break, because it is a lot.
Yeah, you're right. I love that. I love self-care, and I love all your ideas on what you're seeing couples do as they prepare. Are there any things that are overlooked but that could really be high impact that you would advise people to do? And I'm thinking of like the stuff that somebody outside of your work wouldn't think of. So something about like managing a timeline and building in buffers or having backup plans, those kind of things that if you've not done this before, you wouldn't even know you should be prepping.
There are so many things. And anytime I'm having a meeting, the couples are like, oh, we never thought about that, or we never thought to ask about that. Typically, whenever, I would say one of the biggest things is coming up with a ceremony start time. If you are having a mass with the Catholic Church, a lot of times those times are going to be preset. But if you are in a traditional church or a venue where you're going to have your ceremony, you have to come up with your ceremony start time. And I like to start with sunset time and work your way back, because sunset photos are typically going to be your best photos. Those are going to be the ones that you make your profile picture. Those are going to be the ones that are in canvases on your wall. Those are going to be the ones that you use for your thank you cards. And we really want plenty of time for those sunset photos. And we want to make sure that you can leave the reception during that time frame to get to those photos. So I would say that's like probably one of my biggest pieces of advice. But not everybody cares about sunset photos, and that's okay. But if you do, then I would say you need to be strategic in planning your ceremony start time based on sunset.
Okay. All right. Because sunset's considered golden hour, right? And photographers speak the best light.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm curious on kind of trends. What is the favorite wedding trend right now that you're loving?
That's a tough one. I feel like we kind of go in waves. I think blues right now are going to be very popular for next year. I don't even know what the Pantone color is, but we're seeing a lot of blue. Everything right now is about guest experience. Couples have finally realized that, and they have been to enough weddings at this point, enough larger weddings at this point, that maybe they had a not so great experience at a wedding, whether it was they waited too long to be able to get their food, or They got too hot during the ceremony, whatever it may be. And they don't want their guests to experience that. They want their guests to, have literally every second filled with something, whether that is a bourbon tasting or a dessert bar. Trying to think what else there is. There's, grandma being the flower girl and experiencing that. There's just so many things now that couples are doing to make sure that their guests enjoy it. And so many guests, fly from all over to be at your wedding, and they're taking vacation days and they're spending money on their flights and their hotels and their rental cars, that you want to make sure that they really feel appreciated and that you took time and effort to do that for them. And I actually saw a TikTok yesterday where a bride actually hand wrote a letter to every single guest that came to her wedding.
Oh.
Right? And I don't know how she passed them out, but they all had them during the ceremony. And there was a point during the ceremony where they stopped and every guest got to read their letter. And she did 120 of them. And she said she started 120 days before the wedding and wrote a letter to every single person that was there. And like what they meant for her life and why she was so grateful they were there. And I was like, that is amazing. Stuff like that, that's what people are going to remember.
Mm-hmm. I love that so much. And then my next thought, being the psycho planner I am, is I hope people RSVP'd so they could get their letter. Because, RSVPing is a whole other topic these days.
Yeah, it's a whole podcast in itself.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. I know. I love that. I love those unconventional ideas. And you talked about, maybe if somebody got too hot, then that informs how they plan their wedding. A friend of mine went to a wedding in South Georgia, and she said they had a cooling room because it was an outdoor event. And so you could go inside and cool off when you got too hot. And I thought that was really smart.
That's brilliant. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so necessary, because also if you're dealing with people with health factors or older people, that could really become a problem and become dangerous. And so it's kind of a safety measure too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's next for you? Whether it's the podcast or the studio or just you in general, what's on the horizon?
I think for so long I spent time, like my career, my job were like most important to me, and which is not a bad thing. It's just who I am. And I think I missed out a little bit on traveling and doing some fun things. The pandemic really taught me that no matter how much I work, at the end of the day, I can't control things.
Yeah.
Because everything, every family event that I had missed, every friend event that I had missed because I had to work and because I thought work was more important, none of that mattered anymore. And a lot of my thinking has changed since the pandemic. And I am starting to travel more. And as the world has changed, we can do a lot more virtually now, where almost all of my appointments with couples used to be in person. And now I would say maybe 10% are in person. So we can do, Zoom no matter where I'm at in the world. My work is going to be just the same. So I think traveling is probably going to be my next thing in the next probably year or so to experience life some more.
Traveling is so fun. I have really started to prioritize it myself as well, because just like you're saying, you don't always have to be tethered to an office. And what a shift you've had from having this 8 to 5 job, dress up, be in the office every day, to now controlling your own schedule and then realizing I do have control over my schedule. It doesn't have to control me. You've had quite the transition career-wise.
No, I mean, it took me 15 years to get to that point to really know that, I controlled my schedule.
Yep.
I had an intern one semester and I was like, what did you learn this semester? And she was like, everybody makes your schedule but you. And I was like, well, yeah, at least you learned that. So I was like, that's just, as a small business owner, you think you have your whole day planned out and one phone call that morning will shift everything.
Yeah.
So, and it's being able to, and I'm sure you've learned this, the older you get and the more you've done it, the more boundaries you can set and the more you realize what's important and what's not.
That brings up a good point, because I have been always someone who guards my nights, guards my weekends. I've had those boundaries. But yes, to your point, if I say no now, I'm doing so from a place of experience and understanding that the cost is going to be more than the payout. And, it could be more stressful or just not the right fit. Back when I started my business, I was young. I was 25 when I started. You say yes to everything, And so then it's like, well, if I say no to this, like they may not like me, or I may upset someone, or what if I don't have another project? And I've just learned I just try not to have that scarcity mindset. I try to be more of an abundance mindset of this doesn't work and it's going to be okay. I can say no and something better is coming or something different.
100%. And I think part of like when you first graduate school and you're first getting your feet in the door, regardless of what career or what industry you're going into, I think saying yes is so important. Because had I not had my only real job right out of school, like she is still a mentor to me to this day. And I'm so thankful for that relationship that I had with my boss at that point. And, part of who I am now is because of my relationship with her and saying yes to so many things after that, even when I didn't want to, even when I had to be up early or be out late or whatever. I think probably the first 5 or 6, 7 years, saying yes is so important if your career growth is important to you. And then after that, you've kind of built your name, you've built your reputation, you know what's important to you, you know what events are going to benefit you and what's not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I also think it's worthwhile to say it's okay to pivot and shift too, because the things that you may find important initially, that may change and adapt as your life goes on. And then you can just start to make different choices and prioritize other things instead.
100%. Yes, 100%.
Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the show. If folks want to connect with you more and hear your podcast, tell us where they can find you.
SimplyLoveStudio.com. And you can find all of the information about budgets and what you can spend on weddings there. And then you can also find podcast lists there. And Instagram is Simply Love Studio. Basically, you could Google Sarah and wedding planner in Lexington, Kentucky, and I'm going to come up.
Always a pleasure, Sarah. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Welcome to Liz's House Hot Takes. This is where I take the lessons I've learned over the last 16 years of designing Greek houses and offer you my pro tips. Here's today's house hot take. Pad your timeline. If the contractor promises 6 weeks, plan for 8 or more. If a sofa says 16 weeks lead time, expect 20. There are always hiccups. Things like shipping delays, weather issues, and back orders on fabrics. Adding wiggle room to your schedule means fewer meltdowns when reality sets in. A little padding gives you peace of mind and helps you manage your chapter's expectations. Thanks for listening to another House Hot Take. For more inspiration, check out the PDR Interiors Instagram or TikTok. I'm Liz Toombs, and this is the Sorority Chat podcast. Catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're listening on a podcast platform, make sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you got something out of today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. It helps us reach more listeners just like you. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to check out this video right here or this one over here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. On that note, I'm Liz Toombs with Sorority Chat, and I'll see you on the next one. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry for Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Liz Toombs.